click, 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 click. The keeper of the keys. Boom, they knocked. Boom, they knocked again. Dudley jerked awake. Where's the cannon? He said stupidly. Where's the cannon? He said he said stupidly. I want her to use that expression more. I like being stupid. There was a crash behind them, and Uncle Vernon came skidding into the room. He was holding a rifle in his hands. Now they knew what had been in the long, thin package he had brought with him. Who's there? He shouted. I warn you, I'm armed. Then there was a pause. Then smash. The door was hit with such a force that it swung clean off its hinges with a deafening crash landed flat on the floor. A giant man, was standing in the doorway. I guess that's why I'm not a writer. His face was almost completely hidden. I'm not a good talker either. His face was almost completely hidden by a long, shaggy mane of hair and a wild, tangled beard. But you could make out his eyes, glinting like black beetles under all of the hair. The giant squeezed his way into the hut, stooping so that his head just brushed the ceiling. He bent down, packed up the door, and fitted it easily back into its frame. The noise of the storm outside dropped a little. He turned to look at all of them. I don't want to do a haggard voice. Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could you? Why do you keep saying us? Couldn't make us a cup of tea, could you? It's not been an easy journey. He strode over to the sofa where Dudley sat frozen with fear. Budge up, you great lump, said the stranger. Dudley squeaked and ran to hide behind his mother, who was crouching, terrified, behind Uncle Vernon. And here's Harry, said the giant. Harry looked up into the fierce, wild, shadowy face and saw that the beetle eyes were crinkled in a smile. Last time I saw you, you was only a baby, said the giant. Yeah, I'm doing the right voice, matching up with the words. Yeah, you look a lot like your dad, but you've got your mom's eyes. Uncle Vernon made a funny rasping noise. I demand that you leave us at once. Sit, he said. Why does he say sit after he says I demand that you leave? Oh, fuck it. It's a free website. You're breaking and entering. Ah, shut up, Dursley, you great brune, said the giant. He reached over to the back of the sofa, jerked the gun out of Uncle Vernon's hands, bent into a knot as easily as it made into rubber, and threw it in the corner of the room. Uncle Vernon made another funny noise, like a mouse being trodden on. Anyway, Harry, said the giant, turning his back to the Dursleys, a very happy birthday to you. Got something for you here. I might have sat on it at some point, but it'll taste all right. Inside the pocket of his black overcoat, he pulled a slightly squashed box. Harry opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a large, sticky chocolate cake, with Happy Birthday Harry written on it and green icing. Hey. He looked up at the giant. Harry looked up at the giant. He meant to say thank you, but the words got lost on the way to his mouth. What he said instead was, who are you? Which is a very good question. The giant chuckled. True, I haven't introduced myself. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of the keys and grounds at Hogwarts. He held out an enormous hand and shook Harry's whole arm. What about that tea, then, eh? He said, rubbing his hands together. I'd not say no to some... What the fuck? I'd not say no to something stronger if you've got it, mind. His eyes fell on an empty grate with shriveled ship bags in it, and he snorted. He bent down over the fireplace. They couldn't see what he was doing. But when he drew back a second later, there was a large roaring fire there. It filled the whole damp hut with flickering light, and Harry felt the warmth to wash over him, as though he'd sunk into a hot bath. That's fucking illegal. That's giant. I'm so dumb. The giant sat back down on the sofa, which sagged under his weight, and began taking all sorts of things out of his pockets of his coat. A copper kettle, a squashy package of sausages, a poker, a teapot, several chipped mugs, and a bottle of some amber liquid that he took a swig from before starting to make tea. Soon the hut was full of the sound and smell of sizzling sausage. Nobody said a thing while the giant was working, but as he slid the first 6 fat, juicy, slightly burned sausages from the poker, Dudley fidgeted a little, and Uncle Vernon sharply said, "Don't touch anything he gives you, Dudley." The giant peered darkly. Yeah. I love this fucking book. Your great pudding of a son don't need fattening no anymore, Dursley, don't worry. He passed the sausages to Harry, who was so hungry he had never tasted anything so wonderful. But he still couldn't take his eyes off the giant. Finally, As nobody seemed to explain anything, he said, "I'm sorry, but I still don't know who you are." The giant took a gulp of tea and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Call me Hagrid," he said. "Everybody does. And like I told you, I'm the keeper of the keys of Hogwarts. You all know Hogwarts, of course." No," said Harry. Hagrid looked shocked. "Sorry?" said Harry quickly. "Oh, sorry," said Harry quickly. No," said Harry. Hagrid looked shocked. "Sorry." "Sony," barked Hagrid. I should have said sorry. "Sorry," barked Hagrid, turning to stare at the Dursleys, who shrank back into the shadows. It's them as should be sorry. I knew you weren't getting your letters, but I never thought you wouldn't even know about Hogwarts, for crying out loud. Did you never wonder where your parents learned it all?" "All what?" asked Harry. "Oh, what?" Hagrid thundered. "Now just wait 1 second." He had leapt to his feet. In his anger, he seemed to fill the whole hut. The Dursleys were cowering against the wall. "Do you mean to tell me," he growled at the Dursleys, "that this boy knows nothing about anything?" Harry thought this was going a bit far. He had been to school, after all, and his marks weren't bad. Makes sense. "I know some things," he said. "I can, do math and stuff." But Hagrid simply waved his hand and said, "About our world. I mean, your world, my world, your parents' world." "What world?" Hagrid looked as if he was about to explode. "Dursley!" he boomed. Uncle Vernon, who had gone very pale, whispered something that sounded like Mimblewimble. Hagrid stared wildly at Harry. "But you just know your mom and dad. I mean, they're famous. You're famous." What? This is Harry. My voice cracked. "What? My mom and dad weren't famous, were they?" That was Harry. You don't know? You don't know." Hagrid ran his fingers through his hair, fixing Harry with a bewildered stare. "You don't know what you are?" he said finally. Uncle Vernon suddenly found his voice. "Stop," he commanded. "Stop right there. Sit. I forbid you to tell this boy anything." A braver man than Vernon Dursley would have quailed under the furious look Hagrid now gave him. When Hagrid spoke, every syllable trembled with rage. "You never told him what was in the letter Dumbledore left for him. I was there. I saw Dumbledore leave it, Dursley, and you kept it from him all these years." Keep me from what?" said Harry eagerly. "Keep me from what?" said Harry eagerly. "Stop, I forbid you," yelled Uncle Vernon in a panic. "Stop, I forbid you." Uncle Petunia and God damn it. Alright, give me a second. "Stop, I forbid you," yelled Uncle Vernon in a panic. Aunt Petunia gave a gasp before. Go boil your heads, both of you," said Hagrid. "Harry, you're a wizard." There was silence outside the hut. Only a sea and the whistling wind could be heard. A what?" gasped Harry. "A wizard, of course," said Hagrid, sitting back down on the sofa, which groaned and sank even lower. "And a thumping good 'un, I'd say, once you've been trained up a bit, with a mum and dad like yours. What else could you be? And I reckon it's about time you read your letter." Harry stretched out his hands at last to take the yellowish envelope, addressed in emerald green to Mr. H. Potter. The floor, the hut, on the rock, the sea. He pulled out the letter and read. "Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Sorcerer, Chief Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confederation of Wizards. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins September 1st. We await your owl no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress." Questions exploded inside Harry's head like fireworks, and he couldn't decide which to ask first. After a few minutes, he stammered, "What does it mean? They await my owl." "Galloping Gorgons, that reminds me," says Hagrid, clapping a hand to his forehead with enough force to knock over a cart horse, and from yet another pocket inside his overcoat he pulled an owl. A real live, rather ruffled-looking owl, a long quill and a roll of parchment. With his tongue between his teeth, he scribbled a note that Harry could read upside down. "Dear Professor Dumbledore, given Harry his letter, taken him to buy his things tomorrow. I don't need to do his accent when I'm reading. Weather's horrible. Hope you're well. Hagrid. Hagrid rolled up the note, gave it to the owl, which clamped it in its beak, went to the door, and threw the owl into the storm. He threw it. Then he came back and sat down as though this was as normal as talking on the telephone. Harry realized his mouth was open and quickly closed it. Closed it quickly. Whatever. You wouldn't have known if I didn't fucking fix that. Where was I? Said Hagrid, but at that moment, Uncle Vernon, still ashen-faced but looking very angry, moved into the firelight. He's not going, he said. Hagrid grunted. I'd like to see a great muggle like you stop him, he said. What? Said Harry, interested. A muggle, said Harry. It's the N-word for non-magic folk. It's what we call non-magic folk like them. And it's your bad luck that you grew up with a family. This is hard. Grew up in a family the biggest muggles I ever laid my eyes on. Family the biggest muggles I ever laid eyes on. This is gonna get rough. We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to that rubbish, said Uncle Vernon. Swore we'd stamp it out of him. Wizard indeed! You knew? Said Harry. You knew. I'm a fucking wizard. No, shrieked Aunt Petunia suddenly. No, of course we knew. How could you not be? My dreaded sister being what she was. Oh, she got a letter just like that and disappeared off of that school. Came over vacation with her pockets full of frog spawn. Turned the teacups into rats. I was the only one who saw her for what she was. Freak! From my mother and father, oh no. It was Lily this and Lily that. And they were so proud of having a wizard in the family. You dumb cunt. It's not the story. She stopped to draw a deep breath. And then went ranting on. It seemed she'd wanting to say all of this for years. Then she met that Potter at school, and they left and got married and had you. And of course I knew you'd be just the same. Just as strange. Just as normal. And if you please, she went and got herself blown up. And all we landed with you. I hope that was entertaining. Harry had gone very white. As soon as he found his voice, he said, blown up? You told me they died in a car crash. Yeah, fuckhead, the car exploded. Car crash, roared Harry, jumping up so angrily that the Dursleys scuttled back to their corner. How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage, a scandal. They don't drive cars. Harry Potter, it's not the story. Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in our world knows his name. But why? What happened? Oh, but why? What happened? Asked Harry urgently. The anger faded from Hagrid's face. He looked suddenly anxious. I never expected this, he said in a low, worried voice. I had no idea when Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting hold of you. How much you didn't know. And Harry, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell you. But why is there a 3 there? But someone's gotta. You can't go off to Hogwarts without knowing. He threw a dirty look at the Dursleys with his hand. Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can't tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it. He sat down, stared into the fire for a few seconds, and then said, It begins, I suppose, with a person called, but it's incredibly you don't know his name, and everyone in our world knows. Who? Well, I don't like saying the name if I can help it. No one does. Why not? Gulping gargoyles, Harry. People are still scared. Blimey, this is difficult. Don't usually hear blimey in a dumbass southern accent. See, there was a wizard who went bad. As bad as you can go. Worse. Worse than that. Worse than worse. Not worse than that. His name was... Hagrid gulped, but no words came out. Could you write it down? Harry suggested. Nah, I can't spell it. Alright. Voldemort. Hagrid shuddered. Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard about 20 years ago now started looking for followers. Got him, too. Some were afraid, some just wanted a bit of his power. Because he was getting himself power, all right. Dark days, Harry. You didn't know who to trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strangers, witches, or wizards. Terrible things. He was taken over. I scrolled, damn it. Of course, she stood up to him. Some stood up to him, and he killed him. Horribly. Oh, one of the only safe places left was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who was afraid of. Didn't dare try to take it on to school. Not just then, anyway. Now, your mom and dad were as good as a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you know who never tried to get them on his side before. Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore to want anything to happen to the dark side. I probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore. Okay. Maybe he could persuade him. Maybe he just wanted him out of the way. All anyone knows is he turned up in the village where you was all living on Halloween 10 years ago. You were just a year old. He came to your house and Hagrid suddenly pulled out a very dirty spotted handkerchief and blew his nose with a sound like a foghorn. Sorry, Seth, but it's that sad. Knew your mom and dad and nicer people you couldn't find anyway. You know who killed him. And then, this real mystery of a thing. He tried to kill you too. Wanted to make a clean job out of it, I suppose. Or maybe he just liked killing. But he couldn't do it. No matter how you got that. You never wonder how you got that mark on your forehead? That ain't no ordinary cut. That's what you get when a powerful, evil curse touches you. Took care of your mom and dad and your house even, but it didn't work on you, and that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you. And he killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. McGinnons, the Bones, the Privets. And you was only a baby. You lived. Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind. As Hagrid's story came to a close, he saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he had ever remembered it before. And he remembered something else for the first time in his life. A high, cold, cruel laugh. I don't fucking know how to do that. Hagrid was watching him sadly. Took you from the ruined house myself on Dumbledore's orders. Right, you to this light. I can't do the same voice. Load of Tosh, said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He had almost forgotten the Dursleys were there. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have got back his courage. He was glaring at Hagrid, and his fists were clenched. Now you listen here, boy, he snarled. I accept there's something strange about you. Probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. And as for all this about your parents, well, they were weirdos. No denying it. The world's better off without them, in my opinion. What the fuck is the matter with you? Why would you not want to be a wizard? Fuck you, Dursley. As for all they got getting mixed up with these wizarding types, just as what I expected. I always knew they'd come to a sticky end. But at that moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew a battered pink umbrella from inside his coat. Pointing this at Uncle Vernon like a sword, he said, I'm warning you, Dursley, I'm warning you. One more word. In danger of being speared on the end by the umbrella by a bearded giant, Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. That's better, said Hagrid, breathing heavily and sitting back down on the sofa, which this time sagged right down to the floor. Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask. Hundreds of them. Hundreds. But what happened to you know who. Good question, Harry. Disappeared, vanished. Same night he tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery. You see, he was getting more and more powerful. Why'd he go now? Why'd he go? Some say he died. Collapsed. That's not what is written here. Alright, let's see if I can get this right. Some said he died. Codswallop. In my opinion. Oh, okay. Some said he died. Bullshit, in my opinion. Don't know if he had enough human left in him to die. Some say he's still out there, buying his time, but I don't believe it. People who was on his side coming back to ours. Some of them came out of kind of trances. Don't reckon they could have done if he was coming back. Don't reckon they could have done that if he was coming back. Alright, 40 minutes of reading is fucking hard. 40 minutes of out loud reading, sorry. Alright. Most of us reckon he's still out there. somewhere but lost his powers. Too weak to carry on. Got something about you finished him, Harry. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it was. No one does. But something about you stumped him, all right. Hagrid looked at Harry with a warmth and respect blazing in his eyes. But Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure there had been a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How did I make that glass disappear? How could it possibly be? He'd spent his life being clouded by Dudley, and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he was really a wizard, why hadn't they been turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him in his cupboard? Because you're fucking 10. If he'd once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Because it's not fucking magic. Hagrid, he said quietly, I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled. Not a wizard, eh? Never made things happen when you were scared or angry? Harry looked into the fire. Now he came to think about it. Every odd thing that had ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when he, Harry, had been upset or angry, chased by Dudley's gangs. He had somehow found himself out of their reach, dreading going to school with that ridiculous haircut. He'd managed to make it grow back, and the very last time Dudley had hit him, hadn't he got his revenge without even realizing he was doing it? Hadn't he set a boa constrictor on him? Oh, okay, there you go. That's why I shouldn't improvise. Harry looked back at Hagrid, smiling, and saw that Hagrid was positively beaming at him. See, said Hagrid. Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait, you'll be famous at Hogwarts. But Uncle Vernon wasn't going to give in without a fight. Haven't I told you he's not going? He hissed. He's going to Stonewall High, and he'll be grateful for it. I've read those letters, and he needs all sorts of rubbish, spellbooks and wands. If he wants to go, a great muggle like you won't stop him, growled Hagrid. Stop Lily and James Potter's son's going to Hogwarts. You're mad. His name's been down ever since he was born. He's off to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there, and he won't know himself. He'll be with the youngsters of his own sort for a change, and he'll be the greatest headmaster Hogwarts ever had. Albus Dumbledore. I am not... Oh, okay, fuck, alright. I am not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks, yelled Uncle Vernon. But he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Never, he thundered, insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me. He brought the umbrella swishing down through the air to point at Dudley. There was a flash of violet light and a sound like a firecracker, a sharp squeal, and the next second, Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pigtail poke through a hole in his trousers. He's a little piggy. Uncle Vernon roared, pulling out Petunia and Dudley into the other room. He cast one last terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind him. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella, stroking his beard. Shouldn't have lost my temper, he said ruefully, but it didn't work anyway. Meant to turn him into a pig, but I suppose he was much like a pig anyway. There wasn't much left to do. Oh! He cast a sideways look at Harry under his bushy eyebrows. Be grateful if you didn't mention that to anyone at Hogwarts, he said. I'm not supposed to do magic, strictly speaking. That's why I lit that fire. I was going to... I was allowed to do a bit to follow you and get your letters and stuff. One of the reasons I was so keen to take the job. Laundry's done. Why aren't you supposed to do magic? Asked Harry. Oh, well, I was at Hogwarts myself, but I got myself expelled there. And the third year, they snapped me wand in half and everything. But Dumbledore let me stay as gamekeeper. Great man, Dumbledore. Why were you expelled? It's getting late and we got a lot to do tomorrow, Hagrid said loudly. Gotta get up to town and all your books and that. He took off a thick black coat and threw it to Harry. You can kip under that, he said. Don't mind if it whirls a bit. I got a couple of dormice in one of the pockets. That was a fun one. That was chapter 4. 24 minutes. Oh shit.